Hi, everybody. Welcome to Gals. Well, normally it would be a Saturday live stream, but today it's a Sunday live stream. And we're really going to put my live stream skills to the test today because I feel a tad unprepared for today's subject. Certainly not 100% prepared because our time has been spent storm prepping, making sure the shovels, gloves, blah, 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 making sure there's an area that our dog can get out. So we spent a lot of time storm prepping. And I wonder what you guys have done for storm prep. Why don't you tell us? Here, I'm in Quincy, Massachusetts. It just started snowing. I don't know. It's 11 o'clock now. I would say it started snowing about 45 minutes ago, and it's already sticking. So I think that we're going to get exactly what they told us that we were going to get. But before I go on any further, let's see, let's get some housekeeping done. I do want to remind everybody that I am coming at you live from Lizzie Lou Studio. Lizzie Lou Studio being the studio that I named after my cousin Rochelle and myself. So that's where I'm coming at you from live today. Like I said, a little bit informal today because my notes are a little scattered. We've got a snowstorm going on outside. I have many layers on because I'm cold and I feel all bunchy. And so I wish I just had my pajamas and my bathrobe on. So I'm not quite 100% comfortable. So I'm going to have to go with it. Like I said, this is really going to put my live stream skills to the test. So being gals, ghosts, and ladies, we want to remind you that we are going to talk about some things that are probably adult content. Maybe not so much this subject. Some of our other subjects can be a bit disturbing, true crime, hauntings, that kind of thing. But today we're going to be talking about a little bit about Erich Von Danikan and the ancient alien theory that he put forth. So we'll be talking a little bit about that in a minute. So again, welcome to Gals, Ghosts, and Ladies. It's Sunday morning live stream. I have a nice hot cup of coffee. Let me know in comments what you're drinking this morning. Let's see, and who's with us? Oh, hi, Kathy. Kathy, we had to move our cars around too, just kind of jockey them in the driveway, get them off the streets. And Hi, Mark. No, I'll give you some kind of warning if there's going to be adult content. Like what was that movie, that horror movie that flashed the red lights when something bad was going to happen? Was it some kind of horror train movie or something? So I'll let you know. This one, I don't know, not so much. Erich Von Daniken, not really so much. But anyways, like I said, just got to give my shout outs here. As always, before I do a live stream, I like to give a shout out to Ladybug Pest Control, my day job. Can't have a good hobby without a good day job. So I'm very appreciative to Ladybug Pest Control, my day job, so that I can have this hobby. Oh, I was saying, pour yourself a cup of coffee or whatever it is that you're drinking. Hi, Dixie. And hopefully Mowgli is watching too. Yeah, if you're putting some wine in your coffee cup, there's no judgment here on a very snowy and relaxed Sunday morning. Kathy's got hot coffee too. I added a drop of caramel macchiato to mine this morning. Usually I like my coffee, but today just a bit of a different vibe with the storm going on outside, you know. Get yourself comfortable, wrap yourself in a blanket. I have a little heater on next to me every now and then. You're going to see me bend over to turn it on and turn it off. And also, this is a 420 friendly space, so smoke them if you got them because it's a snow day, and I am today right in front of you all, and I make no apologies about it. But I wanted to share with you an expression that a good friend of mine, Sister Maureen Lynch, and she did pass away quite a few years ago, but an expression that she used to say when it snowed, and she was never wrong. She was never wrong. She said that it was a Native American expression, and I apologize if that offends anybody, but I think you know who I mean. You know, some indigenous North American peoples had an expression that went like this: little snow, big snow, big snow, little snow. Now, I'm looking out my window right now. Hi, Carrie. Nice to see you. I'm looking out my window right now, and it's snowing and it's sticking. And it's just the littlest, teeniest, tiniest flakes. Little snow, big snow. And then if it were the opposite, if it were big snow, like big wet flakes, that's unsustainable. That's usually a short-term event, doesn't result in a lot of snow. So we're having the little snow, big snow event, and we're really in for it. It's just beginning, and like I said, I've got a view from a window right here. I'm on the second floor in Lizzie Lou's studio, looking out at my neighbor's backyard, and yeah, it's sticking. We're in for it. Like I said, let's see. Oh, Kathy's got Dunkin' Sweet Creamer. I love that stuff. Love that stuff. So yeah, good morning to everybody, and welcome. And like I said, I am just a little bit disorganized this morning, so please bear with me. I'm looking. I've got notes here. I've got notes here, and I've got notes here. Did a weather check-in. How is everybody doing? Little snow, big snow. Wanted to tell you all about that. All right, well, I hope you like the background. I carefully selected this. I also have, if you see my hand make a shadow, I have a light in the background that is cycling through colors. I thought this was kind of an appropriate background to discuss ancient alien theory. But first, I'm going to look down at my comments, and Carrie, I want to share this. Carrie's got honey in her coffee. Does anybody else like honey in their coffee? That sounds very interesting. I've certainly heard of cinnamon in coffee, and that sounds really interesting, and it sounds really good. Would you put a little milk in there too? That sounds really good. I certainly like honey in tea as well. So yeah, like I said, very informal today. We're doing some check-ins, seeing how everybody's doing, what's in your coffee cup. Doesn't have to be coffee, maybe a little honey. But I'm going to go ahead and jump in and start talking about Erich Von Danikan, and I'm probably going to bounce around quite a bit because I got a lot to say, and bear with me. There we go, Carrie. All right, honey and light cream. That sounds like a winning combination for a cup of coffee. All right. So I wonder, does everybody know who Erich Von Danikan is? And I've got a picture of him, and I think this is a great picture of him. He is the author of a book called Chariots of the Gods. I'm going to say that again. He's the author of a book called Chariots of the Gods. The title of the book is not Chariots of the Gods. Chariots of the Gods? I think that's really important to note, that there's a question mark in the title of this book. You will see it reproduced afterwards, other versions of this book where it's not there. But there's a question mark in the title of the book, Chariots of the Gods. And I'm going to point this tidbit out to you. If you've never read this book, there are 238 question marks in this book. Now, why do I bring that up? If anybody knows me, you know what? I'm such an uber grammar geek. It isn't even funny. It isn't even funny. I'm such a grammar geek. But this book, and this is Erich Von Danikan. You can find interviews with him talking about this. There are 238 question marks in this book because he is not saying Chariots of the Gods. He is not saying this happened and that happened. He's asking, what if? What if modern science is mistaken? What if modern Egyptology got something wrong? What if modern history made an error? Now, we're going to talk a little more about Erich Von Danikan and how some of his theories can be viewed as bizarre, etc. But I want to talk to you a little bit about some other theories that we thought were bizarre. Let's see. I don't know what order I want to go in because there's some really cool ones, but I think I know which one I want to save for last. But let's see. There was the bad air theory. When you got sick, it was because of bad air. This was scientific. This was medical. The bad air theory is because of emissions from plants. It's because the air was foul or spoiled. Well, no, it's because you caught a virus from another person because we didn't know about. See, I coughed and covered my mouth, and we didn't know about droplets coming from our mouth. So, but that was science at one time, the bad air theory. There was a theory that there was a theory that everything revolved around the earth. And when Galileo said otherwise, he was, I believe, banished from the Catholic Church. Everybody was Catholic back then. But it was believed, and it was also believed that the earth was flat. And, so these were science, um, things that were held as valid science at that time. Bloodletting, leeches, blood transfusions in Dracula, the story Dracula by Bram Stoker, which was like, what are you crazy? Well, we do blood transfusions now. They save people's lives. And bloodletting, well, yeah, no, we're not using leeches anymore, thank God. But there is dialysis. William is in the house. Hello there. Nice to see you. So there were some things in science that we believed to be science, and afterwards we found out otherwise. This is the one I saved for the last because I thought this was really crazy. At one time, at the advent of the railroad, at the cusp of the railroads, it was believed that it would be harmful to human beings to travel at speeds up to 20 miles an hour. Well, now look at what we're doing. Cars, planes, trains, automobiles, motorcycles, bicycles, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Dune buggies and ATVs and airplanes and space shuttles and all kinds of shit. We sure are going more than 20 miles an hour, and we're just fine, right? That was accepted science at one point in time, an accepted science theory. And of course, these theories changed. And then another one, this one I saved. I think this is the one I like the best. In kind of early English times, I don't know if it was King Henry VIII, probably before him. I would venture to say before him, and I don't know exactly when, but there was a period in English history that they thought that tomatoes were poisoning people. 100 miles on a motorcycle, Kathy. That's right. That's more than 20 on a railroad. But they thought that tomatoes were poisoning people and making them die. So they eliminated tomatoes from their diet. What was happening was their dishes, their plates, and their bowls were made of lead. Of course, lead poisoning. They were dying of lead poisoning. But where did the tomatoes come in? How did they make this association with tomatoes? The acid in tomatoes, and I'm no scientist, and I fully admit that I'm painting this with a very, very broad brush, but the acid in tomatoes interacted with the lead in their dishes and sped up the lead poisoning. So the association that they made was with the tomatoes, not with the lead and not with the kind of the amalgamation of the two of them together. So all these theories were accepted by science. So when we talk about Erich Von Danikan and some of his ancient alien theories, he was really scoffed at by modern day science. But again, that's why I'm going back to those question marks. Remember what I said about the question marks? 238 question marks in this book. He's saying, what if we were wrong? What if the pyramids weren't built the way we thought they were? What if, I'm going to talk about the Moai, the Rapa Nui. What if they weren't transported the way we thought? That's what he's asking you to think outside of the box of kind of modern science, because we know that at times modern science has been extremely mistaken about things. Modern science was mistaken about how old the earth is. And we're just learning that now, that the earth is much, much older than we thought. And we're learning that dinosaurs lived much, much longer than we thought, and so on and so on and so forth. So we know that the science does change as we learn things and become more educated. And I'm saying that because, again, some of these theories are a little off the mainstream, I guess, and could be made fun of. But I'm going to tell you some stuff that I find I went for the facta obscura, okay. And Erich Von Danikan, boy, you could just there's 1,000 rabbit holes. There's 5,000 rabbit holes to fall down. If you've ever seen an episode of Ancient Aliens, where are my Ancient Alien fans out here? Carrie, Kathy, Mark, anybody? Whoops, there was a lamp. But where are my Ancient Alien fans here? And what I would also say about Ancient Aliens, if you watch Ancient Aliens, I'd say about 98% of it is bunk. Some of it's laughable. And there's that 2% that things that make you go, that 2% that like we like to say on Gals, Ghosts and Ladies. Mark is a fan of Ancient Aliens. I knew it. But Gals, Ghosts and Ladies, I don't know what I was gonna say. Fans of Mysterious and Macabre, these are certainly some mysteries. These are certainly some mysteries. I'm sorry, I went right off my train of thought. Anyways, let me tell you a little more about Erich Von Danikan. Carrie watches Ancient Aliens too. So Erich Von Danikan, he's an Aries. He was born April 14th, 1935 in Switzerland. And he actually died in Switzerland just recently, January 16th. That's what made me want to do this. Although that's what made me expedite this show. I've been wanting to do Ancient Alien Theory and Erich Von Daniken for a long time. Hi, Sandy. Nice to see you as always. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And yeah, there's so many theories that blow your mind. I had to really kind of narrow this down. Like I picked like 3, 4, 5. Oh my God, there's so many things I want to tell you about. All right, let's go. So Erich Von Daniken, in his younger life, certainly had some difficulties, as many of us do. He was arrested and convicted of theft and embezzlement. He did pay his dues to society. He did time in jail. And he also, when he published his book, Chariots of the Gods, he paid back financially what he had embezzled. So he did pay his dues to society. So many of us have many, many mistakes in our past, and we can't be judgmental. Turns out some of the crimes he committed were in order to get his book published. So I think, to me, it showed a commitment of how much he believed in what he was doing. And the end doesn't justify the means, by no means at all. But it made me understand a little more how passionate he was about what he believed. He was married and he had one child, and we're not going to talk a lot about his personal, that aspect of his life. The things I'm going to talk about in Erich Von Daniken's life are the things that relate to how he formed his opinion on, I guess, what would be the modern day Ancient Alien Theory. We all know about Ancient Alien Theory because of Erich Von Daniken, but there's certainly, and other people who came after him, Giorgio Tsoukalos and David Childress and David Henry, and the list goes on. Graham, what's his name? And I can picture so many of them. But he's the one, for kind of our generation, kind of the granddaddy of that Ancient Alien Theory. And I want to tell you kind of how he came about some of this. Now, please remember, this being Gals, Ghosts, and Ladies, you all know that I am my own research assistant. Okay, there are going to be errors in my research. What do I always tell you? Don't take my word for it. Look it up yourself. You all got a Google finger. I'm going to tell you some interesting stuff. Look it up yourself, and you'll find 2 things. You'll find rabbit holes to fall down to learn more about this. And you'll also find, if anybody wants, listen, if anybody, fair and balanced, if anybody wants to know the opposite, there's this guy out there called Mini Minuteman. Look him up, and he will debunk a lot of the ancient alien theories that you see on the TV show Ancient Aliens. I'm not really here to debunk stuff. I'm here to tell you about some things that really piqued my interest. And at the end of the day, like Gals always says, I don't want you to believe, but I want your mind to be open to some different possibilities. Like I said, things that make you go, So, All right, so told you a little bit about his younger life, theft, embezzlement. He was also spent some time as a hotelier. He was training to run hotels. I don't know, that was just a big part of his life. But as a young man, he had a very strict religious upbringing. He was brought up a Roman Catholic, and he actually maintained his Roman Catholic beliefs throughout his life. Um, and I think that that's really interesting to note. Yes, Kathy, open mind always works better. And when we're talking about Erich Von Danikan, not only does he have these ancient alien theories, and some of them come from what he read in the Bible, but he remained a staunch Roman Catholic, and he found a way. He found a way to continue to believe his faith and also have room for this kind of theory. And if anybody ever read A Prayer for Owen Meany says, as in relation to religion, if there's no room for doubt, there's no room for me. So I just think that Erich Von Daniken remained a Roman Catholic and still had an open mind to some other theories and possibilities. And I think that that kind of doubt can make you question things in a positive way. Anywho, so he grew up like in a monastery. His education was by priests, and he grew up, one of their tasks was to translate the Bible from Latin to German, I believe, is what Swiss speak. And so translation of the Bible was a big part of his religious education. I wrote this down. His theories didn't negate his faith. And I find that very interesting. Didn't change his belief. He was labeled a heretic and labeled some of the things that he said as sacrilege, but I don't really think they were, because he really did maintain his Roman Catholic kind of dogmas, all while believing this other stuff as well. Anyways, he started questioning some things that he was reading in the Bible. One of the things, I saw an interview with him, and he said this: the God of my understanding doesn't need a chariot to travel from one place to the other. And it got him thinking, why would an all powerful and creating God need a vehicle made out of metal to move around? So what Erich Von Daniken thought he was reading in the Bible was perhaps misunderstood interactions with otherworldly things that were not necessarily God or angels. Okay. They gave him, the religious instructors gave Erich Von Daniken the Book of Enoch. And in the Book of Enoch, which has been removed from the Bible, the versions of the Bible that we know, in the Book of Enoch, the Watchers, there's a rabbit hole to fall down. The Watchers came down to Earth and had sex with human being women, and they had children. And supposedly that's a theory that kind of helped advance the species. We know there are missing links. We advanced much, oops, there goes that lamp again, much faster than we should have. But the Watchers from the sky. Also, I think you'll find in that research that the term angel is misunderstood. It's actually messenger, so it's a misunderstood term. There's, again, some rabbit holes to fall down. But the Watchers from the sky came down, and this was removed from the Bible, this book. And they procreated. And how did they get to Earth? In these vehicles, my word, that were bright and shiny and created thunderous noises and clouds of smoke and great fires. Like a what? A rocket? A spaceship? Being really, really close to the Concorde taking off? It just doesn't sit right that it's a supernatural experience when you get down to the nuts and bolts. There's another, and I can't tell you everything about the Book of Enoch. I would tell you, you Google that one. And it might take you a little bit to get down to it, because there's like some vagaries. You might have to go a little further down a rabbit hole. And his instructors also told him about the book of Ezekiel. And I'm looking at my notes here, and the book of Ezekiel describes a physical metal piece of machinery with bright lights, thunderous noise, great winds, and plumes of smoke. This isn't supernatural. This is yeah, I wish I had a picture of Georgios Tsoukalos, the way this was a nuts and bolts experience here. Um, does your God need to travel like that? I have vague Christian ideologies. I'm not religious, but my God doesn't have to travel in a vehicle like an airplane or a spaceship. So look these things up, and you'll get much further, bigger understanding of the explanations. I'm going to throw another one out there: Jonah and the whale. Really, people? Really? You think that a man was swallowed by a whale and 3 days later spit up on the beach? It's if I would implore you to keep your mind open to other possibilities, that it just may not have been a whale, because a human being couldn't survive that. Think about it. 3 days in the belly of a whale, stomach acid alone, what it would do. There's also theories that it could have been the stomach of a shark. You just couldn't survive that. You just couldn't. So I would say, please keep an open mind about that. Let's see. My God does not need a chariot to travel. That's what Erich Von Danikan said. Enoch and Ezekiel, both of these men were taken away in these chariots of the gods. Both of these men in the Bible, their story ends with them being transported away in some type of vehicle, again, my word, that is made of metal, that causes great plumes of smoke and spits out fire and roars like thunderstorms and takes off into the sky. And Enoch and Ezekiel are the only two men in the Bible that don't die, because they've been taken away to someplace else. So all I'm asking you to do, I don't know if that's true or not, I'm saying that the way that Mr. Von Daniken presents it is interesting. Food for thought, okay? Food for thought. Also, I keep showing you this book, Chariots of the Gods, and I am going to keep saying it that way, because this is all about questioning it. I'm not telling you anything. I'm saying keep an open mind. Check this stuff out. This is a great read. And if anybody knows who George Norrie is, what was his radio program? AM Coast to Coast? Something like that. He had an overnight call-in radio program where you'd call in and talk about UFOs and stuff like that. He said that Chariots of the Gods was the first book that he read as a kid, like a young man, like 16, 17 years old, sat down and read it in one weekend. So I think it's that kind of book. You can sit down and read right to it. But if you have any interest in Erich Von Daniken, Chariots of the Gods is a great place to start. That's part A. And part B, the second great place to start would be season 1, episode 1 of Ancient Aliens. And that, Ancient Aliens is usually, it's like a 45-minute episode if there's no commercials, an hour-long episode if there's commercials. But the first episode is about like 2 hours long, and it really gives just such an overview of the quote-unquote ancient alien theory, and also introduces you to a lot of other like players and thoughtful minds that are involved in this. Because it's not just this one guy, But I mean, what other great minds in history were scoffed at? I don't know, Tesla, Einstein, Galileo. I mentioned him. Galileo was, I believe, kicked out of his church for going against what they thought everything revolved around the earth. Well, we're just not that important. We are just not that important. So that is kind of I guess in the bigger picture, an overview, a very broad overview of the ancient alien theory, the fact that at some point in our very distant past, the Earth was possibly visited by extraterrestrials from other planets, people more technologically advanced than we were and than we are. and we're going to talk about some things that were probably really difficult for human beings to do given the time periods. So this is kind of the ancient alien theory comes into play here. Did people have intervention from extraterrestrials? One of the stories that I really like in the ancient alien theory is the story of Vimanas. Oh, and what don't I have? Pictures of Vimanas, because I've got some pictures of some other things. Well, Vimanas, they're in the ancient Indian text, the Mahabharata. I practiced all day saying that. The Mahabharata is one of the ancient Indian texts, Indian as in India. And we know they are a very, very ancient civilization. Um, and in there, in the Mahabharata, and there's another text and it begins with an R, and I can't remember what it is, and I didn't write it down. They depict stories of flying chariots, war machines that looked almost like a modern day capsule, like a space capsule, and they were metal, and their history shows these great wars that took place in the sky, and they were shooting fiery arrows at each other. It looked like warfare. I would urge you to look some of this stuff up yourself. I'm sorry I don't have pictures of Vimanas. I've got some other pictures coming up. Um, a fiery dart being shot from some type of metal encapsulation. Now, what if you didn't have the word missile in your language? What if you had the words fiery dart in your language? Could that be a missile being fired or something along those lines? I don't know. Or a bomb being fired? I don't know. It opens your mind. The skies were filled with fighting, filled with fire. And they describe in intricate detail the use of mercury in powering these Vimanas. There's two types of Vimanas. There's the flying machine Vimanas, and then there's also the structures that I think they stored them in. But they say that these fiery darts are comparable to modern day powerful weapons, and they could destroy another machine. And during these engagements, the sky was on fire from these fights. I don't know. It opens your, is it all myth? Is it 100% myth? Or did people, like the ancient Egyptians, did they record what they saw and what they thought and what their theories were? And in their context, a dart, and maybe they didn't have missile in their language. So again, it just makes you think. Easter Island. That's a crazy one. What does anybody know about Easter Island? Well, we know it's called Easter Island because it was discovered on Easter Sunday in what year? April 5th, Easter Sunday, 1722. So discovered by, that means, somebody else showed up because the island was inhabited. But the name Easter Island stuck. The name that I don't know if it was the Spaniards, the white man's, the conquistadors, I don't know, other Polynesians that took it over, I don't know. But when they approached Easter Island, this is what they saw. And these are called the Moai. The people are called the Rapa Nui people, and these are called Moai. And the majority, and first of all, what you're seeing is just a percentage. They're just covered in volcanic sediment, earth, that kind of stuff. They're 30 meters high, which 30 meters, I don't know, what's 30 meters? 90 feet? Was that about 90 feet, give or take, if my math serves me correct? And definitely not my strong point, math. They were easy enough to carve. They're made out of soft volcanic rock. But they're very, very heavy. So I'm looking at my notes here. They're very, very heavy. Now, interesting, when they discovered the island, the figures were standing in 1722, but by 1774, many of them were toppled. So I don't know what happened there. But through excavation, they discovered really just how tall that they were all full-bodied. So they were all, but not just the head, all full-bodied. But it's very interesting appearance of the people. It's very unusual, not anything that we're kind of, I don't know, used to seeing around here anyways. The natives on the island, when the island was discovered, they worshipped the stone statues. And the story is that the native islanders will tell you that after they were, yeah, Jenna, let me put that back up. After they were carved, they floated themselves to their location. Now, what kind of sorcery is that? They floated themselves to the location. So let's look at some things. The logical thing for these very primitive people, and I wish, these were carved, and let me put these back up. 1400 AD. So that would be modern times after death. So 1400. They were carved between 1400 and 1650. That's when they were carved. But at that time, how did they move them? They, like I said, they said that they marched themselves down that way. Well, that's just not possible. They told how they were carved. Now they're saying they marched themselves down there themselves. I saw a show that tried to put them on rollers and do it that way. Well, to put them on rollers, to use a roller like a pulley system, come on, rollers would have had to have been made out of trees. There are no trees on this island. This is a treeless island. This is a Polynesian island. There's no trees. There's nothing to support that theory that they were put on rollers and moved. So they say that they floated there. Well, I don't know what that's all about, but what I do know is that it sounds like a technology that was a little more advanced than maybe the people who carved these things. Now, I'm going to kind of go off on a little a tangent. Oh my God, where is this? Anybody know about the Coral Castle in Florida? Anybody? What was the name of the island? It's Easter. It's Easter Island, Jenna. Easter Island. So, all right, Carrie, I saw that too. They had a theory with them where they tied them with the rope and they rocked them back and forth. Yeah, that's great. Did you see how much it took them to do it? And it was so difficult. It would have been impossible to move all that. Well, not impossible. It would have been difficult to move them using that. I saw that same one, that Josh Gates show, but I'm going to talk about Coral Castle in Florida. Let's see, Coral Castle. I just had it. Coral Castle in Florida. There was a man named Ed Leedsalmen, and I think he was a German national, and he came here and he moved to Florida, and he was kind of a recluse, and he kept to himself, and he was waiting for his 16-year-old fiance to come over and join him. She never did, by the way. But he built this Coral Castle in Florida. Where's Coral Castle? Let's see. I don't have, you'll have to look it up. I know I've been there. I want to say it's somewhere in the southeast of Florida. But this guy built Coral Castle. He was 100 pounds and 5 feet tall. And he worked in secrecy. and he didn't work with anybody else. He worked completely by himself, and he moved massive stones to and he claimed to have, Jenna, put this in your pipe and smoke it. He claimed to have discovered the secret of the pyramids. And okay, here it is. He alone carved and moved 1,000 tons of coral rock by himself. Thank you, Kathy. Leisure City, Florida. In secrecy behind closed doors. So he had at his disposal some type of technology, perhaps, question marks. Perhaps he had at his disposal some type of technology that the rest of us aren't privy to. Do you know that Albert Einstein said that when he meditated south of Miami, that's what I said, in the kind of southeast, that he said things came to him from otherworldly. One of the great composers said that the music came to him from otherworldly. So I don't know. I don't know. Some people maybe are in tune to things that we're not in tune to. I think math has a lot to do with it. And yeah, he was very determined. And then he died and didn't tell anybody how he did it. So to this day, there's a lot of theories, but nobody really knows. But he claims that that he understood the secret of the pyramids, and some theorists believe that it had to do with discovering some type of anti-gravity technology that somehow has been forgotten throughout time. How about this for somehow forgotten throughout time? From the time that the last pyramid was built, and I don't know what year that was, from the time the last pyramid was built, the next human feat of engineering to rival that in history wasn't until the Eiffel Tower. It seems like we forgot or certain technologies, and if we did have these technologies, how did we forget? Anybody out there know General Dynamics? The shipyard, the Quincy shipyard. I live in Quincy. My husband used to be a welder at the shipyard, and General Dynamics used to have a big, they built ships, a big crane called Goliath, and my husband used to work under the crane, welding ships. That machine was so big, it had to be custom made. Even in today's times, it was a massive feat. So you have to look back and say, what in order to build a pyramid, if they had any kind of help, where's the proof of it? Yeah, Carrie, you could see Goliath for miles. And then there was the other crane, my Massachusetts peeps, who remembers the Big Dig? There was a crane brought in for the Big Dig, that they had to bring in one piece at a time. Some came by road, some pieces came by ship. The pieces that came by road were massive oversized loads and were just convoys and flights and everything else. Just my point is, even by today's standards, it's really difficult for us to create the machinery to make projects that big. We definitely do. My mother used to own a construction company that they did like the steel skeletons. Oops, there goes that lamp again, to high rises. So I completely understand that kind of massiveness, but it took us a long time. I said, well, it took us a long time to meet where we were thousands of years ago. This doesn't fit into my story anywhere, but I'm going to throw something out there to you. Mark Ramponi, if you're listening, the Sphinx, the riddle of the Sphinx. It is not a cat. I believe it is a dog. And go down that rabbit hole. And if it's a dog, it actually ties right in to the ancient alien theory. And I'm just going to leave it at that. If anybody has an interest, look it up. That one's fascinating. That one is fascinating. So, all right. So anybody just joining us, Sybil, welcome. We're talking about Erich Von Danikan and his book, Chariots of the Gods. And I go right back to what I was saying that you can't discount that Erich Von Daniken himself says there are 238 question marks in this book. We're not saying this is fact, this is true. I would agree with him and say, is it possible? Could we have got something wrong? I cited to you earlier so many things that we get, for crying out loud, like I said about the railroads. Scientists thought human beings couldn't withstand traveling 20 miles an hour on a train. Okay, and things have changed. So it's possible. We know that the dating of some things has changed, and we've gotten dates wrong and times wrong. Like I said, the Earth is older than we initially thought, and always the science. I don't want to say the science is changing. It is. The science is advancing, and that's why theories change and things get proven and disproven. Anyways, so we're talking kind of about engineering mysteries right now that you say, how did human beings do this? Where did the technology come from? There's so many other things in the ancient alien theory. Like I said, I would recommend reading Chariots of the Gods, and I would recommend watching season 1, episode 1 of Ancient Aliens if you want to have any understanding of what this is about. It is just, I think, very, very mind-blowing. There's 5,000 things in the first episode that are just going to open your mind. Like, were ancient Egyptians capable of flight? It's one of the first, in the first episode, season 1, episode 1, it's one of the first things they talk about, the Sakara bird. So I'm throwing these kind of Easter eggs out to jot this stuff down and look it up, because I don't have time to go over it all. I only wrote kind of some of the big ones down. So, wow, and it's 11:47 already, and I get a couple more that I want to get to. So, let's see. I don't know which one I want to go with first. Let's see. Let's do the Nazca lines. Who's familiar with the Nazca lines in Peru? There's some little animals for you, Jenna. These are some of the Nazca lines in Peru. And these are kind of hieroglyphs, I guess you would call them. I'm sorry if I'm mistaken. And they're so massive, they are only visible from the sky. Now, when you're on the ground, you can tell that there's, the earth's been moved and whatever. But these characters, and these are only a few of them, there's literally hundreds and hundreds of them. And there's spiders and there's keys and there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, look at this one in the top right. What does that look like? Is that a human being? No, it's not. That's weird. And if it is a human being, does he have a spacesuit on his head? I don't know, but he's got 4 legs. So I don't know. That one's just really weird. So the Nazca lines only visible from the sky. There are places in Nazca in Peru where the mountaintops are sheared off flat. I'm going to show another one. Look at this. Sheared off flat mountaintops. And again, from the aerial view, this is what you have. What looks like, according to the ancient alien theory, geoglyphs. Thank you, Carrie. That makes perfect sense. But what you have here, according to the ancient alien theory, is what appears to be runways, right? Airplane runways. These are the tops of mountains. Let's look at this one again. How did they do this? Why did they do this? What, where, when, why, and how? I mean, let's go back to basic first grade. What? The Nazca lines. Where? In Peru, on the top of a mountain. When? Long, long time ago. Um, how? I don't know. Why? I don't know. Why would they do something like this? Why would people be uh, flagging down something in the skies? We are here, we are here. Horton hears a who, we are here, we are here. Were they letting somebody or something know that this is where we want you to come? Please come back here, please come here. And we've provided you a place to land. So they were first, the Nazca lines were first noticed in 1927 by archaeologists. And then in the 1930s, and as commercial air travel became more popular, it really became fully noticeable exactly what was going on down below. There was an archaeologist named Toribio Zespo, and I apologize for that, a Peruvian archaeologist, and he first noticed them. And then they were really, really inspected starting in 1941. How old are they? I don't know, but the Nazca lines from the ground by explorers were noted in the 16th century. So in the 1500s, it was noted that the landscape had been, I don't know, changed or tampered with. So, again, why? Does anybody else have any theories about that? What possibly could this be that and how thousands of years ago, thousands and thousands of years ago? I don't know. Only visible from the sky. And now that we have drones, I think it makes it easier to look overhead at a lot of this stuff. Excuse me, I have to put my little heater on. It's getting chilly in the Lizzie Lou studio, and let's take a break and do a little weather check looking out my window. It's continuing to snow at a pretty good clip, whatever that means. And it's definitely sticking. And remember what I said earlier, little snow, big snow. So we're seeing little tiny flakes, and it's going to amount to a big amount of snow. Anyways, and that was our commercial break. So there's the very brief story of the Nazca lines in Peru. Like I said, my goal here is to throw some stuff out to you for you to look up yourself. And then maybe in the future we can come back and kind of have an open conversation about what other stuff that you found about this. So there's a very broad description of the Nazca lines, very broad description of Easter Island. Interesting to note that I believe that Easter Island also has a creation theory of coming from the stars. Their creation theory is of coming from the stars, along with other like Native Americans. Also, here, look up Nancy Red Star if you're interested in some theories of Native American theories of coming from star people. Nancy Red Star. The ancient Egyptians believed that we originated from the stars and extraterrestrials. The Mayans, the Inca, they firmly believed that we originated in, I don't want to say outer space, makes me sound like my favorite Martian, but someplace else. And so there are many, many cultures that believe that our origins are from someplace other than Earth. And I don't know if they are or not, but I want you to think about that. Think about it. Let me know what you think. So, all right, back to this. Let's see. Where were we? The Moai, the Nazca lines, Israel, and what's the last one? This is the last one. Where, let's see, I didn't even save. Oh, I did save my notes. Yay. I saved this one for last because this one always blows my mind. This guy right here. This is King Pakal, not King Pascal, as I've written in my notes. It's King Pakal. And where's he from? I don't know. I'm looking at my notes. Well, proponents claim that the image shows Pakal. Look at his hands. Okay, I wish you could see my cursor. You can't. His hands appear to be on some types of controls. There appears to be a breathing apparatus at his nose. They say that his feet are operating pedals. And I'm going to remove this picture and I'm going to put a different one up. They say that there are flames exiting from the back of the machine. I'm not quite sure I see that, but this is a little bit of a different view. And then there are certainly theories that say, no, this is King Pakal in showing how he's going to travel to his death in the underworld. I don't know. I pick your theory. Then you probably come up with 1,000 theories for this. But I find it very, very interesting. Again, I like this one. It almost shows him performing mechanical functions. And that one always intrigued me. But really, you've got to look some of this stuff up for yourself. I could have, downloaded 1,000 graphics, but you've got to look at some of the things that they found out there. Like I said, there's the Sakara bird. There's fetishes, for lack of a better word, fetishes, which would be like a figurine or a doll of, from the Incas and Mayans made out of gold that appear to be something in what the only thing we can equate it to is a modern day spacesuit. So that's what I've got for you guys today. A lot of like random ancient alien theory facts, because Erich Von Danikan did just pass away. Rest in peace, Erich Von Danikan. And we want to thank you so much for the ancient alien theory. Like I said, I've only presented like 3 or 4 little teeny tiny tidbits to you. I would really highly, highly recommend reading Chariots of the Gods. If you can get your hands on a paperback edition, very easy read. You'll read it in a weekend, and I guarantee you that you're going to walk away going, how did we build that? Where was that technology from? It's going to open your mind to some things. Why did we forget how we built that? And also, again, just if you've never seen Ancient Aliens, find it and watch season 1, episode 1, and it's about an hour and a half long, 2 hours long, and really introduces you to a lot of the bigger theories. It also introduces you to some of the kind of the main characters in the ancient alien theory. Like I said, Giorgio Tsoukalos and Robert Frisbee, PhD, and Bill Byrne and David Henry. There's Robert Schoch, the guy out of MIT. He's an MIT archaeologist. He's a brilliant mind. In fact, he's just discovered some things about some of the pyramids being older than we thought. And this guy's right here in Boston. So you'll get introduced to some really cool people and some really interesting theories. And being ancient aliens, you're also going to find some theories that are laughable, and laugh. Have a laugh. Have a laugh at Giorgio Tsoukalos's hair. But go in with an open ear and an open mind and hear some of the things that they have to say, and tell me that you don't walk away going, and that's all we want to do here at Gals, Ghosts, and Ladies. Bring you things that are mysterious and macabre, open your mind and get you thinking. How did we forget some of this technology? How did we build this? How did we move that? That's pretty much all I have for everybody today. So on that note, I want everybody to be safe during this storm. And yes, the figures look like aliens. And everybody's comment, thank you so much for interacting. We had a great audience. I think at one point we had 9 viewers. Yay, us. We're really taking off. Stay tuned. I got some big things coming our way. We are going to have a game show. we're going to have a fun game show on things that are mysterious and macabre and some other exciting things coming up. But at the end of the day, like I said, read Chariots of the Gods. Chariots of the Gods? Those question marks, remember that. And watch Ancient Aliens Season 1, Episode 1, and come back here and tell me if your mind wasn't blown. On that note, rest in peace, Erich Von Danikan. And I love you too, Mark and Kerry and Kathy and everybody else. Thank you so much for watching. I had a blast. I hope you had fun too. Stay safe out there, everybody, in this awful storm. Cheers, and I'll see you guys next week on Saturday night. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.